How's it going, everybody? Ragroth here. I'll also just letting you know that I have a fan in the background just because it's really hot. Sorry about that. But, so, something I've been meaning to talk about for a while is the next Netherrealm fighting game, or I guess next Netherrealm game in general, just because we don't know 100% that it's going to be a fighting game, but we're just assuming. Now, there's a couple guesses and rumors of what they could be, and I figured I'd talk about this because it's like, Mortal Kombat 11 has been a kind of cornerstone of my channel for a while now. And Injustice 2 was kind of one of the things that started off my channel, so I feel like I'm obligated to talk about this stuff. So the general consensus is that one of these is the next fighting game for Netherrealm. If they are doing a fighting game, let's just say, for sake of argument, they are. It is either Injustice 3, a Marvel fighting game, a Marvel vs. DC fighting game, or, obviously probably Mortal Kombat 12. So I'm going to kind of talk about what I think is most likely and what I would like it to be the most. So I'm kind of going to rank them, what I would like them to be the most, and then I'm probably going to try to predict what I think is the most likely. So I think in order of most desired to least desired, my most desired would probably be the Marvel-only fighting game. The second would probably be Injustice 3. The third being the Marvel and DC fighting game. And the fourth being Mortal Kombat 12. Now, I'll kind of go from the bottom to the top and explain. Now, Mortal Kombat 12, look, I should probably clarify. I would be honestly fine with any of these games happening. The reason Mortal Kombat 12 is at the bottom, I'm kind of torn on this because, Mortal Kombat 11, I at least left off, I think, very satisfied. I think I got a lot of the characters I really wanted. We had the biggest story mode we've ever had, a lot of content. Admittedly, a little, too hard to get some of that content. But, and I know MK11 does have issues. I know it's kind of cool to hate on MK11 these days. I overall still really like it, despite its issues. And but it's like, Mortal Kombat 12 is like, yeah, there are characters I didn't get that I would love, like Havoc, Reiko, Serena, Smoke, Sector, for instance. And I'd still love to see like Doomslayer in Mortal Kombat, especially if we're not going to get them in Smash Brothers. But, it's not super urgent to get them right now, and it's like, I'm going to be real, it's like, knowing my luck with these rosters, I probably wouldn't get all of them immediately anyway. Some of them would probably be DLC or not even make it in the game. So that's why MK12 is at the bottom. I think I love MK. If it's the next game, great. But I think I'm okay with them just kind of taking a break. Especially with kind of how MK11 ended off. And, kind of doing something else. Especially because this is how it's been anyway. It's been MK, Injustice, MK, Injustice, MK. So I think let's just keep following the pattern here. So now this is going to be a hot take. The reason why the Marvel vs. DC fighting game is the second at the bottom is like, all right, well, I think a Marvel vs. DC fighting game, it is a dream come true. Here's the issue that I have with it, though. Now, when you have these kind of rosters, they're kind of split. And you got to factor in that both sides of the rosters have to have their kind of like shoe-in picks. By the shoe-in picks, I mean like, for Marvel, it'd probably be like the main core Avengers. Then that's already like, 6 characters right there. And then like Spider-Man, and there's probably even more shoe-ins. But that's already like, you're already almost at 10 characters there. Then, on DC side, you got the Justice League. We're going to have friggin' Joker and probably Harley Quinn. And probably Lex Luthor. And probably is Shazam? I always forget. Shazam is the Justice League? I don't know. Sometimes he is, sometimes he's not. But anyway, there's all these shoo-ins that are going to take the roster. And if you know me, a lot of my favorite characters aren't the characters that you see plastered everywhere. I don't like the super niche guys, but I like, the guys that aren't maybe super household names. Like, I like the Ghost Riders, the Carnages, the Psylocks, the Red Hoods, the not Green Lantern, he's pretty well known. The Nightwing is kind of or like the Doomsdays, the Ravens, things like, characters like that, aren't, that have a following and aren't super niche, but, that aren't a guaranteed spot to be in a fighting game. And I'm not like it's not like I'm asking for Night Watch, though. Granted, I would not complain if we got Night Watch in a Marvel vs. DC fighting game, because then we'd basically be having Spawn back. But that aside, yeah. So what I'm kind of saying here, a Marvel vs. DC fighting game, I think the base roster would be incredibly boring, very boring. Yes, I mean the concept would be great, but to the roster, if there aren't characters I want to play as, it's like, it's just going to be boring, in my opinion. And obviously, yeah, DLC will probably get characters I like more, but can we just have a good base roster, though? And, for those thinking, like, oh, Marvel vs. Capcom, they get at least, like, past 30 in the base roster. Yeah, but we're dealing with Netherrealm Studios here. How many times have we thought, like, oh, yeah, this game is going to get 30 characters? Does that ever happen? No, it doesn't. I mean, obviously, I'm talking about base launch. It does not get 30. It's always that kind of mid-20s, maybe late 20s range with, like, Injustice 2 range. The only way I think it's going to have a bigger roster is if the DC side, they literally just take everybody that's in. They literally just the whole side is just Injustice 2 characters. That's it, just for reusing assets, and don't change up the movesets at all. That's the only way the roster is going to probably hit 30 or higher, in my opinion. But I just don't think it's going to happen. And I also don't know if I really want that anyway. There are some characters, as much as I love Injustice 2's roster, there are some characters from Injustice 1 that I would like to come back. And I don't know if taking those assets from them would be as easy. And there should be other DC characters that maybe didn't even get in any of them that should be in as well. So that's kind of why, again, I wouldn't be mad if it was Marvel vs. DC, but it's not my most hype pick. So the second is Injustice 3. I know it's kind of like the most safest, boring one, but like I was kind of thinking about it. I'm like, wow, you know what, I'm actually really kind of getting excited for Injustice 3. That's why I was a little mixed when I heard like kind of Marvel fighting game rumors. I would like them to take some characters they're missing in Injustice 2, keep a lot of the characters that were in Injustice 2 that I really liked, and also add maybe some other DC characters that really haven't missed a spot. Even though I left off pretty satisfied, at least DC character-wise, from Injustice 2, maybe not guest character-wise. So it's like, I am a little worried the roster is going to be worse, for me at least. But I still want to see it happen, and I'm sure I'll still get some characters I like back and some new ones that I do like. So that's kind of why Injustice 3 is kind of the second choice. Now, my primary choice that I think would be the best result would be the Marvel standalone fighting game. And the reason why is because Marvel has not had a standalone fighting game that is not a mobile game. X-Men Next Dimension, Marvel Rise of Imperfects. That's probably the last time we got a Marvel standalone fighting game. And even then, there were characters that were made up just for that game to take parts of the roster. Even though I actually liked some of them, but that's still though like, can we just Marvel of all things? I think deserves its own fighting game. I also think Capcom, while we're on the subject, should get its own, more recent standalone fighting game as well. Because again, it has these problems that I just talked about, where it's like we have to have all these shoo-ins take up a good chunk of the roster. These characters that we see all the time, that we get to play as all the time, and a lot of the more obscure or maybe at least not staple characters don't have as much room to shine. So that's why it's like, can we just get like a Marvel standalone fighting game? Because the Avengers and Spider-Man and stuff, it's not going to feel as much of a kick in the, it's not as a punch in the gut, kind of them taking up the roster, because there's going to be space for a lot of more, I don't want to say unique characters. That's not the right word. Characters that we don't see as much. And I know we should also probably expect, if it is a Marvel standalone fighting game, or even if it is Marvel vs. DC, that it's going to be, there is definitely going to be MCU emphasis. And you're out of your mind if you don't think there's going to be some MCU emphasis. Now, granted, the ideal situation would be if it was Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, where there was emphasis on the MCU, but I think a lot of other aspects of Marvel kind of got to shine as well. That would be the ideal circumstance. I think that would be kind of the best of both worlds. Granted, I mean, I feel like WB and Netherrealm is a lot more, Hollywood-centric. So, unfortunately, it could be a lot more MCU-focused than Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. Ultimate Alliance 3 was developed, as a Japanese-developed game. It was made by Team Ninja, I believe. So, but granted, I feel like Marvel still has the final say in who gets in and whatnot. But I would like to say, it wouldn't be super. I'd like to say we'd get X-Men. I don't think I'd like to say we don't have to worry about that. And I'm pretty sure, I feel like Ed Boon and them would kind of, I don't think they'd fly with not having X-Men and stuff anyway. They seem like they've grown up with characters like X-Men and Fantastic Four and stuff, and more of their Spider-Man characters, that they'd be like, no, we have to have, some of these characters that maybe aren't part of the MCU, or at least not yet. Because I know X-Men is going to be, and Fantastic Four is going to be, but it's just not yet, at least. But yeah, that's kind of what I would like it to be the most. The one that I think that's most likely, I mean, I kind of want to say Injustice 3, just because the problem is, the thing that's kind of makes the rumors for the Marvel game shaky is that the whole WB and Disney thing. Like, WB is very DC focused, and then Marvel is kind of, Disney kind of locked around them. And I just don't know. But then again, the Lego games, Lego Marvel, I'm pretty sure they are produced by WB. So maybe there is kind of a loophole there. It might just be when it comes to kind of film rights that it kind of gets shaky. I feel like Injustice 3 is probably the safest guess. I know there's rumors for the Marvel fighting game, and like I know, rumors do kind of come up being true. Like I know a lot of people like, they go, I don't believe what you say on the internet, but a lot of times things have gotten leaked. So there is definitely credence to it. I just feel like it's probably just safest to predict Injustice 3 even with these rumors. And then the other problem is I feel like I can't really get a straight answer from the rumors if it's a Marvel standalone fighting game or a Marvel versus DC fighting game. Like I think I've heard some things just say Marvel fighting game, some have specified Marvel versus DC. Again, really hoping if it is a Marvel fighting game, it's just Marvel. No mix and match. At the very least, first just do a Marvel fighting game. Then maybe do a Marvel versus DC. Let's just have Marvel have its time to breathe first. And especially, it's Netherrealm Studios. Some of the DLC characters are going to be guest characters and probably Mortal Kombat characters that we get all the time. So that's another thing to consider too, why it should just be a Marvel fighting game for at least the first time. But yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents there. I could go into more, talking about what characters I would want in the future. I think I kind of wanted to just start off just talking about what I think could be next for NetherRealm, and then I can kind of go into like, hey, if it's Injustice 3, I'd like these characters. If it's the Marvel fighting game, I'd like these characters, and etc. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, definitely with this kind of whole thing. And, let me know if you think, NetherRealm's next game, it's not going to be any of these. If it's going to be like, a different fighting game, or maybe not even a fighting game, because I know Ed Boon has expressed interest in doing stuff that aren't fighting games. But yeah, thank you so much for checking out this video. And as I always say, another time, another place. Keep being awesome.